Hello, everybody. Let's learn how to think faster. This is Anthony Metivier from magneticmarymethod.com. Sim is in the house, and he is from Malaysia. Good to see you. Thank you for being here. If you're joining us, hit the thumbs up. Let me know where you are in the world, what you're doing, what you're thinking, and how to think faster. This is something that a lot of people ask about, and we're going to stress test this with good old Ulysses Everett McGill from Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? If memory serves, that would have been 2000 the movie came out by the Coen brothers. And he thinks fast, doesn't he? Thinks on his feet. He's really sharp all the time. And he, is able to just come up with a song in the middle of nowhere. And he's always got an idea about how to get out of this or that trap, right? Well, not so fast, because he's also not very good at thinking, and he likes his pomade so much. I think it's Dapper Dan or something like that it's called. And he makes a lot of mistakes, and he's not exactly the sharpest whistle under the sky. He's just not really as smart as one thinks. And one of the problems, and one of the things that you'll see with the desire to think faster, is that it's like the Dapper Dan problem, which is that a lot of people want to think faster because they're concerned about how they look to others. And that is not what thinking faster should be about. Because do you really want speed, or is it accuracy of thinking that matters, right? So I got a ton of cool resources for you today, and examples and special little tools that will help you legitimately think faster so that accuracy is the result and not Dapper Dan stuff that leads you into trouble. Because if you know, Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? And then you know that it's basically an adaptation of the Odyssey, and you know that good old Odysseus or Ulysses was not really that intelligent of a fellow at the end of the day, but he sure could talk the talk, and he sure was able to seduce people into thinking that he was a lot smarter than he was. But it got him into a lot of trouble. So much trouble that he actually had to go to the underworld and have, what was it, Tiresias, tell him to give your head a shake, my friend, and help solve things, right? And it's a typical sort of thing where people need to go to the underworld and they need to have a presentation of all the terrible things that will happen if they don't give themselves a real wake-up call and get smarter, truly smarter. So Monst is here. He says, you're going to teach us how to be smart. I'm going to teach you how to teach yourself to be smart. Because at the end of the day, true intelligence comes from you being your own teacher, right? So I'm not sure if Chrome Woman Walking will join us today or not, but she was on her YouTube channel talking about some teaching that was out there and how that she wasn't sure she believed the teacher. And I commented it on her channel, and I said, here's the thing. If your teacher, or if the teaching requires your belief, it's not really teaching at all, right? So we don't want to be seduced into things that require our belief. What we want is evidence-based teaching that enables us to go out and confirm the hypotheses ourselves, or at least have a path to seeing how that those hypotheses can be, have been, and can in the future be confirmed. So that's accuracy. Otherwise, just Dapper Dan your way to bliss and pretend that you're thinking fast when in fact you're thinking sloppily. And speed and sloppiness tend to go together. But we still can legitimately think faster, and that's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about the why, the how, and so forth. And starting with the why, what I want you to do is list why you want to think faster. So this is a very, very important exercise. Please don't skip it. It's very, very important because we need to weed out the wrong reasons, and we already listed one of them. You want to look better to others? You want others to, think that you're some laser-targeted master genius and so forth? Here's the world's smallest violin playing just for you, because no one cares. In fact, if they do care, it's often in a way that you don't want them to care, because they think, whoa, what a snotty human being. What a disingenuous person. And then they may think also a game of comparisons where they've raised you on a pedestal, right? And we all know the gods have clay feet. And so are you sure you really want that? Because then you'll be exposed eventually. So, do you really want to look better to others, or do you want others to place you on a false pedestal? It's not a good outcome at the end of the day. Rather, you might think of different things like tangible performance needs. So you might want to think faster because you have exam time limits. And it's not, you shouldn't care that you get a good grade because it makes you look better. You should care that you get a good grade because it legitimately helps you get more grades that are good later on. So the use and the function of a good grade is to qualify for more opportunities to study if you want to study more for more qualifications. It's the opportunity to learn more and become smarter progressively, again and again over time. In sports, what is the purpose of being able to think quickly on the field so you're making the best performance decisions? You're where the puck is going, or you're where the ball is going before anybody else, so that you help make the actual game winnable, if not won, right? Well, that is so that you can play more games, right? It's not how you look. It's the outcome that enables you to play more games. So this is basic game theory. The way to play games is to enable yourself to be invited so that you get to play again and again and again, so long as you actually enjoy the game that you're playing. And if you stop enjoying it, you then have the ability to go and play other games in a different category because you've become so good at the game of playing games. Does that make sense? Let me know in the chat how you're doing. Hit the thumbs up. Let me know where you are in the world, what you're doing, what you're thinking. And generally, if you're in a decision-based profession, then you want to be able to think faster, think on your feet, but think accurately and know how to stress test your thoughts so that you actually have best practices around accuracy. So we're going to talk about that today. Let's check in with the chat. Alexander is here. He says, I don't like people telling me how smart I am. It bothers me. I don't ever want to be on a high horse. Yeah, if you checked out last week's live stream, there was someone who gave me a meaningless compliment. Don't even know me long enough to compliment me, and I kindly rejected the compliment as being meaningless and got some flack back about that. Just accept the comment, he said. And it's just like, no, I won't, because it doesn't mean anything. And I'd rather you come back and say, hey, I used this teaching to go out and crush an exam, or I went and did this or that, or whatever it is that one does. And then the compliment really isn't for me, it's for you, because you went out and did something with the teaching. But just to hand out praise meaninglessly should always be stopped and rebuked and put in the context, right? Because we don't need compliments. We don't need the pat on the back. What we need to do is have accomplishment, right? Not activity, but accomplishment. So if you're in a decision-based profession, you're a doctor or a lawyer or anything like that, thinking faster definitely makes sense. But is it thinking faster, or is it the ability to combine and recombine and follow avenues of connection in order to create stable landing pads in the future? That's what How to Think Faster is really about. It's not really about the speed. It's about the landing and how soft or hard it is based on the integrity of the thoughts that you've compiled all along. And then what is the field in which your thoughts exist? How broad is it? How deep is it? You know, these are things to think about. Now, I'm going to check in with the chat in a second, but personally, what I want is to think slower and more thoroughly and rap. So what is rap? Well, I read recently this book, Decisive. I got to thank my friend Ollie Richards for, encouraging me to get it. And there it's green, but here it's blue. Magic. But this is a very, very good book because it has a model called RAP, W-R-A-P. And in order to make better decisions, which is essentially thinking, and to do it more quickly, but in a way that has accuracy, they say you want to rap. So let me know in the chat if you would like to know what WRAP stands for. And let's check in with the chat, and we can dive into rap if you are interested. All right, so Mind Business is here all the way from Texas. Real name Wesley. Great to meet you, Wesley. Thanks for being here. And always love people in Texas. Maricela is here as well, also in Texas. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Cynthia is here. Good night. Well, good morning from Brisbane to Cynthia. Now, as we're waiting to see if anybody actually wants to know the RAP formula, which is very, very powerful. So far, don't hear anything. Let's let you know that there's a new podcast with Nir Eyal, who created a wonderful book called Indistractable that is magic because its cover disappears against the green screen. But Indistractable is a really, really good book, and you can hear my interview with him. He gives away loads of free things. also on that episode. So if you would like to know more about how to control your attention and choose the things that are going on in your life, you want to get yourself a copy of Indistractable. And I highly recommend the print book because there's a magic device in the back that I really think is amazing. And this is just a great book. And it's all science-based. So please make sure that you get that immediately. And if you're not convinced, make sure that you listen to the interview with him, because he gives a masterclass on removing distractions from your life and thinking better about what distraction is, so that you're not leading yourself down a false path. Because as you see here, it's all about not only creating an indistractable life, but techno-panic-free focus. Now, I don't agree 100% with some of his conclusions about the role of technology and our ability to contain it. I think it's not really an agree thing in a right or wrong sense, but I think we've just read different research. And also, I'm a little bit different in my own personal habits, and that can shape one's propensity for dogma. So I'm aware of that. But in any case, I just go a little bit more on the Spartan side of things, so to speak, and we'll talk about that in a minute, so that you can have better decisions that you make. But at the end of the day, if you miss this book, you're really missing out. And it's a quick read, it's a fun read, and like I say, it's got a cool device in the back that I highly recommend. And I'm especially blessed because I have a nice little introduction card here that I intend to make use of, that came with my copy of the book. So that's cool. All right, so TRT44 is in the house. Good to meet with you, TRT44. Will Henry says, what does RAP stand for? Well, Will, thank you for one vote. Can we get a couple more? Who wants to know what WRAP stands for? Can it really be Will alone? Are people so tired they can't punch in? Let me see. I have a magic number in my mind, and if you saw the cover for RAP, maybe you will know what that magic number is. All right, let's see here. TRT44 said, what if you can't think fast like others and you feel different, empty? How can someone think faster if there's a problem to find information fast or recall something to answer? TRT44, thank you for that question. Please stick around because we are going to dive deep into that. And Israr Ali Khan is here from Malaysia. Excellent. But in general, that's the nature of this presentation today, TRT44, is exactly if you can't think like others, if you feel different, if you feel empty, and there's a problem. We're going to go deep into that. But here's the thing. Don't think you're going to get this in a 30-second video, 6-minute video, or anything like that. We're going to talk about the problem of snatching things out of little clips. It's possible, but unlikely. All right, so Will, our brothers here and our sisters in memory are not quick to jumping on your desire for rap, but let's see if we get anything more. If you're joining us, hit the thumbs up. Let me know in the chat where you are, what you're doing, what you're thinking. I want to share with you the rap formula from Decisive. It's been very, very powerful for me, not only in thinking faster, but thinking more accurately, especially around decisions. Shay XT from Jersey. Excellent. Good to see you here. You say, funny enough, just as I was coming on, I was thinking about game theory, memory, cybernetics, and the science of decision making. Wish I knew all this 20 years ago, but thanks again. Excellent, Shay. Well, yeah, that's really, really important. And it's good you mentioned cybernetics, because if you missed the beginning, we started with Oh Brother, Where Art Thou, which is a copy, or a remake, better said, of the Odyssey. And one of the things that's so interesting about the Odyssey is that it's where we get, or it's it's one place where we see the Greek origin of the word cybernetics, which is kybernekoia. And my ancient Greek pronunciation is probably not that accurate, but kybernekoia is very, very interesting because Norbert Wiener was really the one who took that Greek term and introduced it into cybernetics and made it cybernetics, and it had a lot to do with, missile, heat-seeking missile technology and that sort of stuff. And one of the things that we learn from the Odyssey is how to make better decisions by not being like Odysseus or Ulysses. And the whole thing of the Khyber, like the river Khyber, death takes you across the river Khyber, right? And there's a kind of actually, that chapter in the Odyssey is often called the Nicoya, right? Which is called the trip to the underworld. And it's all related to death and how you make decisions, the quality of decisions you make. And we'll talk about this later today, is really related to our thoughts and feelings about death. And you might not believe me, but I'll show you exactly how that is so. And if you can get things around game theory, decision making, squared with how you feel about your own death, your mortality, that cybernetic nature, not really cybernetics, but the Kybernakuya problem can be solved and resolved, and you have to continually maintain how you resolve it, but it can help you so much in life to just have death in context. So we'll talk about that later. All right. So TRT says, thank you. Alexander says, north or south? Touche. Okay. Israr says, RWRP. So it's RAP, WRAP. Can we get another person who wants to know the RAP model from Decisive? Let me know. Let's see how alive and kicking we are today, and we shall unveil it. While we're waiting to see who else wants to hear what the RAP formula is, just to let you know, we are moving at a pace towards the release of the next book. And so if you want to be part of the street team for my next book and access the first reveal from the next book, go to magneticmarymethod.com/VM, and you can be part of the street team and get reveals, the title reveal first, the cover reveal first, bonus material that, to be perfectly honest, I haven't figured out what all it's going to be, but those people who are supporting the release of the book are going to get some great treatment, and that's at magneticmarymethod.com/VM. Let me know that you're interested. This book requires the RAP technique in many, many ways, and I'm so glad it's perfect timing that I read this to learn how to think better about releasing books and to make better decisions. And I will try to maintain my shock that so few people want one of the most powerful decision-making techniques who are showing up for a How to Think Faster session, but we all know how that goes, right? So let me see if I got this spelt right. magneticmarymethod.com/VM. I hope so. Good. So there's a link that you should be able to click. And Month says, yes, I want to know. TRT says, what are you talking about? I'm thinking about it every day. I need an answer. Well, TRT44, yes, you need an answer. And part of the answer is stick around. We're going to have a full session today that will give you an answer, but there is no one-sentence answer. And if you still think that there are 1-minute video, 6-minute video answers, you're living in a dream world, my friend. It's time to wake up and start studying and stick with us, because we're going to talk about how to think faster in depth, but we're going to do it in a live stream format. If you follow the links below, there is something for you that is called How to Think Free Audio, and it will give you an hour-long presentation. So, if you don't have time right now, you don't want to hang around with us, and you don't want this opportunity to learn about how to think faster, you can go and listen to that recording. But don't be in a hurry. Don't be in a rush, because you might miss the point, right? And so if you don't want to stick around, then, we've got to first cover factors that slow your thinking. And so you might want to know what those factors are, because that could be the most valuable thing, but they're not covered in that link that I've shared in the description below. So I hope you'll stick with us, and if not, no problemo, although I hope that people will learn how to think faster and not get into the Dapper Dan trap, which is, oh, I need to look good, and oh, I better go and make sure my hair is straight. That's worldliness that is not going to help you out. All right, Month wants to know, and Shay definitely wants to know. All right, so WRAP. It means widen your options, it means reality test, it means attain distance, and it means prepare to fail. And we need to practice RAP as much as we can if we want to think faster, right? So widen your options, reality test, attain distance, and prepare to fail. Very, very important. And so I'm really glad that I read this book in time, because I've been using the RAP formula for everything that I'm doing with the book release, but also just everything. It's very, very good. Now, I think I've been good at a version of that throughout my life, but this is just a fun little thing. It takes a minute to memorize that in a memory palace. Bam. And I've been using it ever since. And you use it a lot more when you actually memorize things, right? So I highly encourage you to memorize the WRAP formula. What's the best way to do it? Get on over to Amazon right now. I have no dog in this game or no affiliate links to share with you. Just go and get Decisive. While you're there, get Indistractable and make sure you read them from cover to cover. And then, instead of just memorizing the WRAP formula as I did, make sure you know it in context of what they're trying to share with you. And you'll get a lot further, a lot faster. Because one of the factors that slows thinking is that people don't read books anymore from cover to cover. Yikes, that's not good. And they don't know how to prime either. I saw a guy the other day who I'm going to quote in a minute named Damian Patterson. And he talked about this amazing way that he used to pass exams in school. And then he denigrated it. And he said, this is, not the most scholarly way of doing things, etc., etc. And I came up to him during the break of his presentation. And I said, you should congratulate yourself a little bit more, because you're actually doing what speed reading experts call priming. And this is like a major industry that people teach people how to read faster, just like you did. And yes, that's why you got the top grades, whereas the more diligent students around you who are fumbling and farting around and not actually using proper learning skills were failing because they were trying to read the wrong way. They didn't have priming. They didn't have the thoroughness of accelerated learning techniques in order to get this stuff done correctly the first time, so that you have more free time. And some of the factors that slow thinking is people just don't invest in accelerated learning techniques. If they do, another factor that slows their thinking and use and value from them is they aren't thorough about taking the course. So we're going to talk about some of these problems that slow thinking, and we're going to talk about it in the context of WRAP. But number one thing you want to do is speed of implementation. Make sure you add these recommendations to your shopping cart and order them immediately. Why? Because that's called the speed of implementation rule. Every minute that goes by that you don't take action, it gets less and less likely that you ever will. And that's going to guarantee that you never think as fast as you want, because you'll never get to the next stage, which is every minute you don't read the book that you ordered, less likely that you ever will, right? So speed of implementation is a principle for thinking faster, which is that you make decisions as quickly as you can. Oh, this is a recommendation. It's coming from a reliable source. $20, $30 or whatever for a book. This is just a no-brainer, right? In the scheme of things. Most people are going to go and spend that on junk food at some point this week, if not today, if they haven't already. Whereas this is substantial, right? So get your priorities straight. And when somebody says this book is powerful, get it within 5 minutes and have it on its way to your house, and then read it the instant that it gets there. You want to get it digitally? Near, to be fair, doesn't think that that's that much of a problem. I think it's a huge problem. But in any case, if you listen to our conversation on the Magnetic Memory Method podcast, you'll get some nuance around that, because he reads particular books in physical form and particular books in digital form. So, pick your battles. I'm not going to necessarily go too hard on that, but I think that you're pretty crazy if you're reading anything of substance on digital, and he agrees to a certain extent. All right, so let's see here. Dapper Dan Trap, says Will Henry. Exactly. So many people are more concerned about how they look with their speed of thinking rather than the accuracy of their thinking, and you can get it both. You can look really good and have accuracy at the same time. So Cinda is here. Is this for studying or for life decisions? Isn't studying a life decision, Cinda? Great question, but studying is a life decision, so where's the difference? Let me know in the chat. If you're just joining us, hit the thumbs up. Let me know where you are in the world, what you're doing, what you're thinking, and we'll talk about the number one factor that slows thinking. It's very simple. People don't schedule time to think. This is really, really important. Have you had your thinking time today? I mean, have you literally had on your journal and your checkbox, yes, I did my thinking time? If not, this is a problem. If you want to continue to be in the trap of thinking slowly, don't practice thinking time every day. If you want to speed up your thinking, if you want to really accelerate it, schedule some thinking time. It's very, very important. We'll talk more about this as we go and give you some tips around how to do that. But at the end of the day, if you're not making time to think, you're not going to be able to practice it. So you need to schedule time to practice thinking. So that's the number one thing there. Now, the next thing is things like smoking and drinking. That can slow your thinking incredibly. Brain injury, and incidentally, other kinds of injuries. Like I hurt my shoulder recently, and it's only been the last week that I've been able to get back into the gym. Injuries of all kinds can slow your thinking because we know, and I shared on my Instagram a scientific report from a magazine about just how a bit of muscle exercise can increase your speed of thinking by something like 13%, I think was the number there. I didn't memorize it, but I'll go check later. I don't have my dumb phone here to to assess it for you right now. But anyway, it's on my Instagram, and I think it was probably 13% was the number that I saw there. So this is really, really important. Brain injury, but also physical injury can slow thinking. And when I hurt my shoulder, which we still don't know exactly what it was, but we know I have bursitis in my left shoulder, and not being in the gym, I was interviewed on a podcast. I did a demonstration. I made one mistake, which is very uncommon in my memory demonstrations, but I'm sure it came from the injury, and I was really slow. I was a lot slower. I didn't give the greatest interview, and I'm trying to avoid the mistake of being self-critical, but at the same time, I mean, just objectively, it's very uncommon for me to be as slow and foggy, and it's because I wasn't going to the gym, and I had to take a break, and I had to get physio, and I've had some physio. Now I'm back at the gym. I feel so much sharper. It's night and day. So injury as such can slow your thinking, and it's just the way it went. But making one mistake is not tragic in a demonstration, especially given the demonstration. But the whole thing is that it would still be an A+ on an exam had it been an exam. So that's cool. But it wouldn't have happened, I don't think, if I had been in my best shape as I normally strive to be. Depression and medications can slow your thinking, as can age. But I think the number one factor that we all face is accumulation of these things. So people aren't scheduling time. They aren't taking care of their bodies because they have bad habits. Smoking, drinking. What is the ETC there? Well, sugar probably is one of them. I'm not a nutritionist, but there's a lot of things out there that, dairy, wheat, etc. is just really bad for the brain and your speed of thinking. So really consider taking elimination diets very seriously, rotation diets, etc. Brain injury, depression, medications, age, etc. But I think the kingpin of them all is digital amnesia. So I can't tell you the amount of times people say, I wish you would make slower videos. Shorter videos. We got all kinds of short videos, right? So they're already showing their digital amnesia, because if they can't find short videos from me, then there's something, going on with their field of perception, because they're looking on devices that hide half the content, right? This is not how intelligent people go about studying things. You need the biggest possible screen that you can get so that you have the biggest field of perception possible to eliminate the force of digital amnesia. Smaller the screen, the less context you're going to have. The smaller your field, the less room that you've got for detail, the seeds of detail that grow into knowledge. So you want the Dapper Dan effect? Yeah, I look cool because I've got my little tiny device, and ooh, your smartphone is a little bigger than mine, or yours is a little smaller than mine. Get out of this world of this small thing. The convenience is killing so many people. It's ruining their brains. It's ruining their ability to actually see information in context, and they're not even aware that I also have short videos if you need it. Short videos aren't the key, however. We need longer videos as well to help us escape digital amnesia, because the shorter the content, the more often you have to turn on the engine. This is just drama theory 101. If you stop and start the scene all the time, well, then you're cognitively draining yourself, because you have to restart the engine of context, right? Whereas if you can get the wherewithal together to sit and pay attention, and there's some simple devices called paper and pen, and we've got a note-taking training on the Magnetic Memory Method blog and podcast, Very, very important. Train yourself to pay attention. Train yourself to have alternatives so that when your mind wanders, etc., you can get your body to guide your mind back into a space of concentration and focus and get out of the Dapper Dan world. Because, there's a problem with the short content world, and it's leading to meat. A lot of people tell me, where's the meat, right? Well, what does meat mean? Meat means meaningless, edutainment, absurdly thriving. It seems to be absurdly thriving a lot more on the internet, but this is what a lot of people think is knowledge now. Oh, I just want to look for short videos that are all cut up and spread across a couple hours so that I don't have to focus or concentrate or actually engage with the knowledge, etc. Meaningless, edutainment, absurdly thriving. Well, what we need to do is we need to improve with luck. We need luck. Luck. Learn using correct knowledge that makes you smarter. Now, I mentioned my friend Damian Patterson already. Luck comes from him. It's in one of his books. Learn using correct knowledge that makes you smarter. What is smarter? It is being serious, mature, absolutely ready to embrace reality. And the reality is that 6-minute clips are not going to help you think faster. They are going to train you to think within a small field. You cannot expect to think faster if you are reducing the field in which thinking happens. You've got to expose yourself to longer forms of content so that you can see thinking out loud demonstrated and think along with thinking out loud demonstrated. Now, you can hear a little anger, perhaps, in my voice, but that's coming from a place of love. And it's because I have seen knowledge progressively destroyed with snippetization. I have seen so-called education experts praising snippetization because it gets more people through more content. Who cares how much content you get through if it's eroding your ability to think coherently and consistently across time in the world where you need to be able to demonstrate and capitalize upon your ability to focus and concentrate in a world where long information is a reality. So learn using correct knowledge so that you can be smarter, which means serious, mature, and absolutely ready to embrace reality. Because reality is going to smack you hard in the face, upside the jaw, and you're going to hit the ground so hard you won't know what hit you to get you on the ground, and that ground is not going to be kind to you. And your brain is rotting every minute, right? We're all dying. We're going to talk about embracing the reality of death later so you get comfortable with it and happy with it. Cybernakuya or Kybernakuya, right? We're going to have to love our fate. This is the Amor Fati coin. I got to spend an hour with Ryan Holiday the other day, by the way, and it was wonderful. But the thing is that death is always coming, right? Here's Mr. Death. Catch you later. Well, you got to get comfortable with it, and your brain is dying right now. Right? And you can accelerate its death by constantly exposing you to snippetized knowledge and then thinking that that is somehow increasing your ability to think faster. It's not. It's slowing it down. You are degrading your attention span, not increasing it. This is very, very important. So learn using correct knowledge so that you can become a serious, mature individual who is absolutely ready to embrace reality. And so we need brain exercise. And one of the ways to get brain exercise is by thinking correctly as possible. Correct is not a destination. It is a focus on doing the best that you can in the moment. And then we need to do it regularly. We need to do it frequently. We need to do it in a way that, Tony Buzan, my great mentor, who gave me the Warrior of the Mind emblem for outstanding contributions to global mental literacy, he said, follow the rules and the rules will set you free. Well, he didn't say this, but I thought about this free again and again and again. What does it mean to be free? Well, to be free means to study frequently with relevant information that improves your life in a spirit of experimentation and entertainment, a way that entertains you. That's where the memory techniques come in, right? FREE. Frequent practice with relevant information that is not compressed and squished into 6-minute snippets. Now, there are some, times when you can do that, and it does make sense. But anyway, overall, we want the longest form of information that we can get so we can practice thinking out loud with the demonstration of thinking out loud. And we want to do it in the spirit of experimentation and in a way that's entertaining, right? So that's free, FREE. Learn using correct knowledge so that you can be serious, mature, absolutely ready to embrace reality. Let's check in with our chat. If you're just joining us, hit the thumbs up. Let me know where you are in the world, what you're doing, what you're thinking. And let's see here. Alexander says, people say I spend too much on books and learning, but I'm willing to invest in myself. Excellent, Alexander. Those people, so what? I mean, people say stuff, right? People are always going to say stuff. You focus on you, right? And by the way, they are in you, so might as well pay attention to them. But at the end of the day, you've got to just say, that's what they say. But then look at them. Look at their lives, right? I think that there are obviously people in the world who have rooms full of books who aren't exactly top performers. That's possible too. But what you need to do is, at the end of the day, understand that most people who have gotten anywhere in life, they are smarter. And part of reality is get physical books, read them. Don't be farting around on digital media any more than you have to, right? Now, we're here, and that's a bit of a paradox, but at least it's not this snippetized garbage that's out there. We're doing more of the classic lecture setting where you come, you show up, and you practice thinking together out loud. We'll talk more about that as we proceed. But at the end of the day, I want to thank Damien because he's so genius with this luck thing. Learn using correct knowledge. All right, let's see here. Shay says to Cinda, decision-making in steps analogous to algorithmic steps of thinking strategy. Thanks, Shay. We're going to talk about that actually as a strategy coming up very, very soon. Thank you for that. Will says, what better thing to spend money on, Alexander? Indeed. Books. Adolfo is in the house. Good to see Adolfo. Thumbs up for Adolfo. Back from a digital fast. Excellent. Digital fasting is a very, very important strategy. TRT. It's good to see you, Adolfo. It's so wonderful. Oh, wonderful. TRT44 says, I think you are the best memory techniques instructor, especially the Mind Palace. Now you were talking about things happening to me, fog injury. Is this normal? Sometimes I can't concentrate on wide range. Well, thank you very much, TRT, for the kind words. My goal, though, is to make you the best memory instructor of yourself. So if I can make that happen, then the compliment goes to you. All right. Now, in terms of fog injury, is it normal? Well, no, it's not normal. Having brain fog is not normal. Injury is normal because it happens, right? You're going to play hard or you're going to play soft. Well, playing soft leads to worse injuries overall, right? Because being a couch potato, the injury you do to your body by not exercising, that's worse than, me getting bursitis. I'd much rather have bursitis where I got to be out of the gym for 2.5 weeks or whatever it is while I'm figuring out some alternate exercises I can do even though I have this problem, get a good bit of physio. I'd rather have that problem than have the problem that I've had before in my life, which is drinking all the time and getting fat, developing what they thought was gout, spending a year stress testing that it really was gout. They want to stick needles in there and all kinds of weird stuff. Like they literally want to put a needle inside my ankle. So, I didn't like that. And I cleaned up my act. I got rid of the booze. I got rid of the wheat. I got rid of the sugar. I got rid of the dairy. And my life changed. My brain got so much sharper, so much faster. And man, I know that we can't make everybody do the same, but I'm going to spend the rest of my life trying to convince you why it's so important, because my memory got sharper as well. The cruel irony of it all is that my memory was pretty good even before that because of memory techniques, but it was nothing like it is now. And as I said, I recently hurt myself. I was out of the gym during that time that I was out of the gym. Things went downhill, but not so bad because even though I made a mistake on a memory demonstration that I gave, it still would have been an A+ in an exam. So, no, it's not normal to have brain fog, and you can get out of it if you're willing to study and practice better techniques of life. All right. LL Pete is here from Southern California. Thanks for being here, LL Pete. How are you doing lately? Wonderful. TRT says, it's like something is covering my eyes, but I'm not talking about vision. Like my brain stops focusing on that thing, forces me to stop focusing on that thing. TRT44, I've had that. One of the things that happens for me time to time is that I got to eat in a very particular way, very disciplined, but sometimes I just got to eat, right? And I've had this thing where there's like grass-fed beef in patties, and I sometimes forget, Dr. Memory here sometimes forgets, yes, it happens, but I sometimes forget to ask all of the 9,005 questions that I need to ask before I order food. And even though this is pretty good that I carry around in my wallet to tell people, look, none of the food that I eat, like I can't eat any of this stuff. It'll hurt me. We'll call the ambulance. I'll walk out of a wheelchair, blah, 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 blah. Sometimes I forget to just ask, is this grass-fed beef of yours, does it have any sugar in it? And, excuse me, I made a mistake and didn't ask that question. And all of a sudden, my eyes start twitching all around and my brain can't think. And it's something like what you say there. It's like, it's not about my eyes, but there's like this vision block because the sugar is just, and I was telling my wife after we had this incident, I was like, this is like what it was like when I was in school, in elementary school. Just, I would eat something and it was like my eyes couldn't focus on anything on the page. It was like my eyes were twitching around and my brain was doing it too. Now I'm an adult and I have studied this for a long time and I know that the substance is putting my brain, it's just totally hijacked my brain. And so it's like I was cruising along on a bike or something, like maybe just a pedal bike, and then all of a sudden this bizarre chemical causes my bike to turn into a scooter. And the scooter is just not supposed to go this fast, but it's down the highway. And because it's not designed to go so fast, right? It's like, so that's what the brain is like. It's not designed to go that fast as sugar or other substances throws you into. And so, yeah, it's like that. I've had that experience, TRT 44. Your brain stops focusing on one thing. How could it, right? Your brain is a substance. It's a chemical entity. And so if you force it to eat certain things that it doesn't like, right, which is sugar and etc. Yeah, I've had that. I've suffered in hell for decades because of that, and I just didn't know. So please, please, please make sure that you are getting that taken care of. Chrome Woman Walking is in the house. We mentioned you earlier. I was hoping you would show up. Good to see you. Thank you for the super chat. You say, I don't know why it doesn't show up on our little screen there, but I'm going to put in from Chrome Woman Walking. Readers are leaders. Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed they are. Thank you for the super chat. Really appreciate you supporting this work as you do so often. Wonderful. And thank you for your conversation about the matters that relate very much to memory. I love that. And I love that you vlog about it. So everybody, make sure you go get subscribed to Chrome Woman Walking's channel. It's very compelling. And she has some memory chats and book chats and stuff and had some great titles there. I think you got more books beside you than I do, but I got some more here to show you guys today. All right, let's see here. Austin Studies says, hello. Alexander says, reminds me of how everybody studies the night before. Decent for shorter term memory because of recency effect, but not learning. That's a good point to put it in the context of recency effect. You could also call it primacy effect if it was the first time you saw it as well. But yeah, I don't know. I never really tried to do that. I never lived my life that way that I can recall. But in any case, it is a strategy and wouldn't really recommend it. If you prime properly, though, you can get learning out of it. Cinda says, if they want small clips, I recommend the video on concentration or how to manage time. These are most very long term. Great, great. I don't know if you mean on my channel or elsewhere, but thank you for the recommendation. TRT44 says, I don't care about making money more than having knowledge and using it. Absolutely. Although the thing about money is that it can enable you to have more knowledge because you have more time to have more knowledge, and then it can help you help others. So again, Damian Patterson, he calls it participation tickets for yourself and others. So that's learn using correct knowledge right there. Austin Study says, Great Falls at the moment, waiting on my ride to get out of the mall so I can get to my place and relax with a little bit of math. Always good to catch a live stream. Oh, good to have you here. Thank you for being here and enjoy that math. Chrome Woman Walking says, on the way to see a PT. Love the replays. Well, thank you for checking out the replay, and thank you again, Chrome Woman, for the super chat. Leonardo da Vinci is in the house. Great, great. You say there's no difference between grass-fed and grain-fed. Both are equally bad for you. I think there is a difference, and there's some differences that we can get into. But let's not get lost in the weeds of food. Let's have a chat about that on a food live stream. William, and by the way, one last point about that. I really appreciate you drawing that out, and I don't say that you're wrong. But at the end of the day, there are people who they're just going to eat meat, period. And there is a way to eat meat more intelligently, and I have to deal with it because if I don't eat some meat, I'm not going to be able to think. And that's another talk for another day, but I'm going to be eating meat. I just have to. My food sensitivities are so extreme that if I don't eat meat, I will fade away to a shadow and then die. All right. William Gordon is in the house. Good to see you, William. Checking in from Ipswich. Also, someone told me today you have a great memory after I put in the effort with your memory techniques. Exciting stuff. Oh, that's great, William. Nothing like a compliment, right? Like a meaningful, substantial one. And Ipswich, what a great place. Now I have some memory palaces there, including your place, which is amazing. And William is so clever. He has a memory palace in his backyard. I got a picture of myself with it, but I haven't posted it yet. I got to ask him actually if I can, because it's private stuff. But man, that was a wise move, William. You've got a memory palace in your backyard. Like it's just... It's like the sisters of fate are with you. TRT44 says, thank you. I appreciate sharing your thoughts and experiences. My pleasure. That's what we're here for. And if you're just joining us, hit the thumbs up. Let me know where you are in the world, what you're doing, what you're thinking. Leonardo, thank you for your super chat. It didn't show up on the screen for some reason, our chat screen there. I know it shows up on YouTube, but let me feature it up here. I really appreciate you supporting this work. And you say, any thoughts on lucid dreaming for memory? Well, you'll be very pleased and delighted to know that we have some slides coming up about dreaming in a minute on our talk today, because How to Think Faster has a lot to do with dreaming, actually. So yes, I do have lots of thoughts on lucid dreaming for memory, and let's get to them now ahead of the curve so that we honor your super chat here. Again, appreciate that very much. So we'll talk about it again later, but in case you can't be here later, the thing about dreaming is if you just set aside lucid dreaming for a while, what we want to do with dreaming is we want to first be able to remember our dreams. And we want to increase the depth, duration, volume of recall so that it triggers lucid wakefulness, right? Now, how does that work? Well, in my experience with this and several students who have told me about this, I wish I heard from all the students, but in any case, Harvinder, I don't know if Harvinder will be here, but he's had these experiences and he's got so many memory palaces that he's derived from his dreaming through not only our course on how to remember your dreams, but also the Magnetic Memory Method Dream Recall Intensives that we hold usually once a year. But the thing is as you begin to practice recalling your dreams in a dedicated manner, let's say for 6 months, what you're going to start to realize is that the distinction between lucid dreaming and dream recall may be suspect, may be different, and you might give up that need to lucid dream, but you'll become more lucid of when you get lost in the dream while you're awake. So we know that we daydream, right? Well, what would it be like if you could be aware of yourself daydreaming? Would that really be any different than being aware of yourself sleep dreaming? The answer, in my experience, is no, of course not. Because being in a fantasy is being in a fantasy, whether you're awake or asleep, right? I think it was Keats in Ode to a Nightingale who said, do I wake or sleep, right? And he was very, very conscious of this need to be aware of the dream while you're awake, regardless of the status of the dream. So is there a difference between sleep dreaming and wakeful dreaming? There is, actually. And here's the important distinction. The important distinction is that our wake time fantasies tend to be a lot more about the past that we think actually happened, an alternative version of the present, or something about the future. And that's where the RAP formula from Decisive can be so super important for you. But the thing that you want to really focus on is, can you trigger greater awareness of the present moment by remembering your dreams? Now, the other thing about remembering your dreams with more accuracy, depth, and volume is that it will exercise your memory by doing it. So what you want to do is make sure that you start to journal and have your dreams written down. This is itself a powerful memory exercise that gets you to recapture more of your sleep. And this in itself tends to trigger lucid dreaming. Now, I try to avoid lucid dreaming because I think it's a waste. I'm in control, or I have the illusion of being in control all day long. What the heck do I need to be in control of my dreams for? Plus, in my experience of lucid dreaming, I am placed in control of things. So, for example, one of my most recent lucid dreams that was really over the top, I just was piloting a spaceship and I was forced to be in control of the spaceship, right? Because in order to maintain the lucidity, I also had to maintain control of the spaceship, and we're spinning all over the place and yada, yada, yada. And it's just like, So the point is that there are levels of control, gradations of control inside of lucid dreaming, and you have to become a real dedicated student of control inside of that. And when I sleep, I just want to be out of control. I just want to remember the cool things that come out of dreaming. So we're going to talk a little bit more about what those cool things are. But at the end of the day, if you want to use lucid dreaming for memory, first decide, is it about dream recall or going lucid? Noting that by practicing the recall of dreams, you're much more likely to trigger lucid dreaming. And then, is lucid dreaming itself going to be a practice that you want to spend enough time on to control staying in the lucid state? Because often what ends up happening is, yes, you're lucid, but something is thrust upon you. And you have to control that thing in the situation of the lucid dream and practice being able to control it in order to maintain lucidity to the point that you can do whatever you want. And then there are people that I've heard from who use that time to practice their memory palaces in the lucid state. And I've just never practiced enough to get there. And when I have, I usually abandon it because I can just do that while I'm awake. And I'm much more concerned about dissolving the fantasy so that I'm with the real while I'm awake. And I want to get to something, and I've had this happen a lot, which is essentially being awake while you're asleep, right? Which is no thoughts at all, just an awareness of being awake while you're asleep. So a lot of people say that the end goal of the practice of meditation and enlightenment and all that jazz is to just simply be aware 24/7 until you die, which is then when you emerge into the great, allness, right? You return to where you came from, essentially. So one of my goals is just simply to not sleep, right? And I've had this now quite a few times, and it is exquisite, which is that it is different than sleep paralysis. So sleep paralysis is when you wake up while you're asleep and you know that you're asleep, but you can't move, right? But then you kind of don't feel comfortable about it and you want it to end, and it's not a nice situation. You might think that someone's peering down at you, or maybe there's an alien abduction going on, blah, 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 blah. Well, I've had that too. But the alternative is just to be like, oh yes, here I am and I have no thoughts. My body is sleeping and I'm awake. I'm just going to enjoy the ride. Pure bliss, right? And that's amazing. And apparently there are people, I don't know that many of them, but apparently you can just have that all night long. And so, yeah, well, that's just one of my pet goals recently. So I hope that gets an answer to you, Leonardo da Vinci, and I thank you again for your super chat. We're going to talk a little bit more about dreaming later on. Og Super is here, or OG Super. Excellent to have you here. Hit the thumbs up if you're just joining us. For OG Super's great question on how to study for finals. You have 3 APs. So AP is advanced placement, is it? Let me know in the chat. We're going to get to that question in a little bit later, but I want to plow on because we've talked about a lot of the things that get in the way of our ability to think faster, and we've got to figure out how that we can think faster. So no matter what condition you face, trauma to the brain, trauma to the body, smoking, drinking, etc. Even when I drank and smoked the odd weed or whatever, I still needed to do this one thing. Thinking must be practiced. So you need to set time aside. How are you going to set time aside? Well, you got to actually set it aside. So what's one way to do it? Digital fasting. So Adolfo was here earlier. He did some digital fasting, as he mentioned in his chat, if memory serves. Let me look back here. Yep. That was him. Great. He said, yeah, he's back from his digital fast. Good. My short-term memory is not bad. Yeah, so digital fasting, what is this? It is literally leaving the house or going someplace with no device whatsoever. Nothing. Nada. Maybe a journal to write in. And it can be smaller than that, so it fits in your back pocket. This is my preference, but journals come in all shapes and sizes. And what you want to do is practice staying away from technology. Practice being away from it. Now, I stayed away from Instagram for years because I knew that you let one foot in the door, you have all kinds of stuff. It's just Pandora's box, right? But I finally figured out a way that I can enjoy it without getting trapped in it, which is that if I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it once a day, if at all, right? And so this has been a tremendous practice. It's wonderful because it's like you set a clock. You go in there, you fart around, you post your post, and then you just leave it for 24 hours. And this is kind of cool because you accumulate more space. And then when you go in it, the dopamine spike that you get is actually dopaminier, so to speak. It's a bigger payoff because you've earned it instead of rather this thing that apparently is leading suicide children to kill themselves because they're not getting enough instant feedback. Oh, nobody liked my stuff. Instead of that, you're just going back, and it doesn't matter if anybody liked your stuff or not. It doesn't matter because you're just there for your daily check-in. You're going to look what's new for 5 minutes or whatever. You know, ideally you're doing like I'm doing, which is to have some stuff in Sanskrit and Chinese and German and etc., philosophy from the Stoics or whatever, instead of, junk. You've got some at least half decent stuff in there, and then you're going to post your post and get the heck out of there and not touch it again for 24 hours. So that's a weaker form of digital fasting, but it's still a form of digital fasting. So this is something that really you can learn more about in more depth from Indistractable. I've been practicing it for years, but even that book gave me some more ideas, and it sort of encouraged me to give it a try. Allow the beast in, but have some borders, right? So digital fasting is powerful. So there's two kinds. Call it a walkabout digital fast. You leave your house, you go to a cafe, and you have nothing. You don't even necessarily have to have this, but your goal is just to think, right? You might want to say, well, what am I going to think about on my digital fast? And then you think about that thing. Allow yourself to think about other things, but you need to set aside time for thinking that is USSR, uninterrupted, silent, sustained reflection, right? Very, very important. All right, now, journaling, of course, we can talk about. This is Yannick Silver's Cosmic Journal. I absolutely love this because this is a fun way to digital fast. We're going to have a piece about it soon on the Magnetic Mirror Method podcast. I don't know if you can get this limited edition anymore, but so if you see it on Amazon, it's going to have a different cover. But this is my one that's signed from him, Yannick Silver, signed in silver. Very nice. But this one's cool because it involves structures and randomness. So, and it's a beautiful art object. So make sure you go and get one of these and let them know that you got it and that you heard from it from here. It's just beautiful, and it gives you all kinds of randomness exercises inside of a structure. So if you need the random in your life, you don't have to have it from blah, 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 digital things. You can get randomness that is compelling, that directs your thoughts in different ways through journaling, either with something like the guided tour of the Cosmic Journal from Yannick Silver, which is cosmicjournal.com, by the way, or you can just do it to yourself, right? So just simple journaling is amazing. So I've been playing around with Giordano Bruno, which we'll talk about. You can't really see it very well, but there's some Giordano Bruno style memory palaces that I've been creating out on my digital fasts. You can read books while you're out on your digital fast, but obviously not not digital books, because that wouldn't be digital fasting. Another thing you could do is just take some of these out to a park and juggle and think while you're juggling, etc. Lots and lots of things you could do. Also, you can practice mind mapping for what Tony Buzan called radiant thinking. And that's a very, very powerful technique that I highly recommend. What does it look like? Well, I'm still a student of mind mapping myself, but radiant thinking looks like this. And why? It radiates out of a central image, and it radiates internally. So arrows, point around from different topics, etc. And it's visual and it's very, very beautiful. So mind mapping is a way to train yourself to think faster, but you need to set time aside to do it so that it's uninterrupted, sustained, silent reflection. And you work on it. And I'll tell you, I got so many mind maps in the last year, and I keep practicing mind mapping. It's so beautiful. Yeah, I look a bit like a weird person, I guess, because I go out with this giant thing out to the cafe. I got this big stack of colored pencils. I don't care what people think because I'm not Dapper Danning myself. I am totally focused on just the outcome, not confusing activity with accomplishment, just focusing purely on how activity leads to accomplishment and making sure that those activities lead to accomplishment. Another way to think faster is to learn the Fineman technique. So we're not going to dive deep into the Fineman technique right now because we have previous live streams about it and resources, and there's a video about it, how to use it to conquer fear, etc. So you can search that up if you like. And before we carry on, we want to talk about practicing a couple of kinds of awareness, but let's check in with the chat. If you're just joining us, hit the thumbs up. Let me know where you are in the world, what you're doing, what you're thinking. And TRT44 says, I want to say something about dreaming. 3 years ago, I was dreaming about something and it happens after a while. I'm not laying, but maybe I was active spiritually. And now if I had a dream and I wake up right after and I recall it, when I go back to sleep, I see events from the past. Very cool. Very cool. So that might be something that is coming out of what we'll talk about a little bit later. Kyle says, hey, Anthony, are you supposed to utilize spaced repetition if you are in school and have limited time to memorize material? Well, it depends on. Thanks for being here, Kyle, by the way. Good to see you, as always. You always have great questions. In terms of, it depends what you mean by spaced repetition. So there's rote repetition, and then there's creative repetition. But all repetition is always already spaced, right? Because you can't repeat something at the same time, right? You're either doing the one thing in that time, or you're not. So if you do it and then you do it again, it's already repetition, and there's naturally a space between it. So spaced repetition doesn't really mean anything, and people have confusing ideas of what that term means. So we need to think about, are we talking about rote repetition through the assistance of devices, or are we thinking about creative repetition that is device independent or some hybrid, right? Are we causing through our practice a creative repetition assisted by devices? So I don't know exactly what it is that you're asking, but if you can put some more finesse on your question, please let me know. But I'd go in caution of being supposed to do anything. The end of the day, and this is where the Fineman technique would come in, is you need to craft the best possible approach that makes sure that activity leads to accomplishment and helps you avoid the Dapper Dan problem, and it helps you avoid the confusion of activity as an accomplishment, because activity is not necessarily an accomplishment. And that's the problem with spaced repetition, is that a lot of people are confusing that activity as accomplishment. So we need to get out of that. Please let me know if you have more finesse on that you'd like to provide. And in general, hit the thumbs up if you're just joining us, and let me know where you are in the world, what's going on with you. Now, what we want to do in terms of thinking faster, and this is where we're starting to get to the heavy-duty techniques here. You want to have a little system in your head that always is asking questions that are contextual in nature. So who, what, where, when, why, how. Sounds obvious, right? Well, who's doing it? You just want to constantly have those things in your mind. So there's a little bit more finesse that we're going to get to with the who part, but what is pretty simple, right? Like, what is it? When was it created? What is its size? What is its dimensions? What are its parameters? What function does it have, etc.? Where was it created? All these sorts of things. Now, when we ask when, we don't want to just ask when, but we want to ask like when in terms of what is the actual history by which our understanding of it was built. So you don't want to just say, well, this particular device was built in 1812. No, you want to be able to go much deeper than that. You want to think about the story that was also built that tells how that we know that history, right? So there'll be prehistory that leads to a particular thing. Like if we just take the Industrial Revolution, for example, right? Like first of all, we need to know when that generally is said to have come into existence, but we also need to know what were the prevailing tendencies previous to that that enabled it to become possible. What's the genealogy there? Genealogy would also include the key players. So if we're going to look at something like the development of schools, then we're going to need to look at education for at least the previous 100 years, etc. Genealogy is somewhat coming out of Nietzsche's perspectivism and what came to be called deconstruction, which really is poorly understood. It doesn't mean that we're taking things apart to deconstruct them. What we're doing is we're showing the history by which they were put together, and possibly were never quite together in the way that we think, so we're busting through certain illusions. Now, a lot of that's become unhinged and it's become political, but it's generally a very powerful tool to be able to use deconstruction, and we also want to be able to use it in the context of difference. And so that's all heavy-duty stuff. You can get into it if you want, but at the end of the day, general contextual awareness is having a little thing that is who, what, where, when, why, how, right? And just constantly think that when you're having a discussion, when you're reading, etc. And that's going to help you finesse out what really matters in thinking faster, which is that you're asking the best possible questions so that you might think better and faster thereafter. So it's not about the conclusion most of the time. It's about the quality of the questions you're able to ask as you are reading, listening, etc. So that's one kind of awareness you want to practice. The other kind of awareness you want to practice is benefit awareness. So this is like who plus. So when you're talking about who created something or who said something, to what benefit? Whom does this serve? Always ask this. So Foucault, he said, the definition of power is the ability to conduct the conduct of others. And so many times we forget to ask this question. If that's true, and if we can establish that that's true, who benefits, right? Because often the truth is not really the truth because it's true. It's true because somebody has fought long and hard to make it true for their benefit, right? And this is a problem amongst scientists. It's not a problem with science. Science doesn't have problems because science is a tool. It is the collection of evidence that either confirms or denies hypotheses, right? And it helps us make better hypotheses so that we can better confirm and deny our ideas about things, right? But scientists sometimes get into the problem of this being the conclusion because it benefits this or that party, right? So if you want to think faster, you always want to think, okay, so power means the ability to conduct the conduct of others. We know that William S. Burroughs said very brilliantly that control seeks to control control. So to whom does this truth benefit, right? Because rarely does the true truth benefit the people that it's supposed to benefit, right? Because the true truth is often too hard to bear, right? So that's why we want to be smarter, right? Remember what smarter means? It means serious, mature, and ready to embrace reality. And so you always want to understand that a lot of people can't embrace reality yet because they're not smart enough yet. They're not smarter yet. And there's a whole bunch of sharks in the water who are happy to have things benefit them, right? Because they'd much rather have the short-term gains than the long-term gains of a stronger society, right? So benefit awareness is really important to think faster. It will help you cut through the noise and you might not be totally accurate, and you've got to be really aware that you don't fall into certain traps, because benefit awareness can lead you to slave morality, and that's not good, right? You can't have any kind of moral things poisoning your assessment, and this is a trap, and we see it so much now in the world. We've got basic problems with slave morality just have gone completely unhinged, and it's the explanation for a lot of results in the world recently at the end of the day. But you can have best of both worlds. You can have really good philosophical thinking tools and avoid your own cognitive biases at the same time. It is possible. And if you got the Dapper Dan problem and you're worried about how people think you look, then it's going to be harder for you. But if you've got the Dapper Dan problem in check, then you're ahead of the game. If you need more help, there's a link down in the description that gives you an hour-long presentation about how to think better. And it's an audio. You can just listen to it, and I think you'll enjoy it quite a lot. So make sure you get that link down in the description below. Let me just for the sake of ease, put it in the description for you, and I think you'll enjoy that presentation a great deal. All right, let's check in with the chat. If you're just joining us, hit the thumbs up. Let me know where you are in the world, what you're doing, what you're thinking. TRT44 says he doesn't like rote memorization. No doubt, no doubt. I don't like it either, and it's useless most of the time because creative repetition is where it's at. Thumbs up to that. If you're just joining us, hit the thumbs up. Let me know where you are in the world, what you're doing, and how you're feeling. Kyle says, how do you deal with mental burnout? My brain has felt exhausted these past few months and hasn't felt as charged as before, even with small breaks here and there. That's interesting. So what is it that you're doing? Maybe let us know more about that, and we can maybe stress test a few things. But at the end of the day, you might want to book a strategy session, because to give you a proper answer, I got to hear more about what's going on than we could probably do in a chat here. So if you feel like you want to treat yourself for that as a Christmas present for the end of the year, then, let me know if you need details about doing that. Because I don't want to throw out a meaningless answer, but I need a better description of mental burnout to do you real well. But in general, that's the problem, right? A lot of people are willing to generalize. So forgive me if I'm not, but if you can throw in more specific details, maybe we can jam on something concrete a little bit more. But I don't want to just throw stuff out without knowing more of the story. But here's one thing for sure. You can get out of it for sure. I've been in mental burnout, and there are options and strategies, but they need to be mapped very specifically on that specific strategy. So maybe this will help you. What we got coming up next for you in terms of thinking faster is to make sure that you have a long-term thinking project and a memory vision statement. So that, Kyle, might be something that you need to do. There is a replay available on the memory vision statement. I have thought a lot about taking it down, but I'm going to keep it up for you all for the next while. So the link for that, I believe, is in the description below. And it generally should. Oh, maybe no, it's not there. Oh, yes, it is there. Good. So go down and check that out. Make sure you watch it from beginning to end. You do what it says, and you'll have a lot of revival, I hope. But I need to hear more about what it is that's going on with you. So please keep me informed. All right. I hope that is useful. TRT44 says, I thought about that to ask questions about things or people around me, but I couldn't keep up with the method to be a habit or attitude for my mind. It helps keep me focused and be a step ahead. Well, I'm not sure exactly what you mean, but in general, asking questions is good. Please keep asking them and learn the Fineman technique so that when you're asking questions, you're really hitting the ground running with those questions that you ask. Dr. Riaz is in the house. Good to see you here. You say there is no complete video which fully explains how to construct a memory palace. Oh, yes, there is. Many, many complete videos that fully explains how to construct memory palaces. I would recommend that you go to magneticmemorymethod.com and sign up for the free course. But thank you for your post and for joining us. Really appreciate it. And just head on over. Right there, free memory improvement kit, magneticmemorymethod.com/YT. If your fingers are feeling tired, you can skip the YT and just go to the main site, and the registration button is right there. And it fully explains how to construct a memory palace. In fact, many, many thousands of people have been through that course and very happily sent me their memory palace drawings. So I know that there's a course that exists because I've shared on this channel many, many images of their memory palaces that they've drawn. And that's a beautiful thing. Beautiful, beautiful thing. So all the evidence in the world is right there for you. All right. Mr. Drad asks, will this be up tomorrow? Why worry about tomorrow when we can talk about today? I have no idea whether it will be up to tomorrow or not. I'm not going to make promises, but chances are, yes, all things remaining equal. Thank you for being here. Thank you for asking. But, speed of implementation is such an important rule. So please make sure that you take action immediately as soon as you can, because there's no promise that it'll be here tomorrow, even though we hopefully can rely on it being that case. Red 44, Lap 44 is in the house. Thanks for being here. You say you use spaced repetition with your 9-year-old. It's pretty good for some things, but I found out some things he was trying to remember for months. He was still forgetting or mixing with other things. So I mixed inventing stories with the repetitions. Great, great, great. Yeah, I mean, everything depends on your goal and what you're doing. And there's partly your mindset and your mental metaphor of what you're doing and how you're doing it. But you want to make sure that it's creative repetition to get the most out of it. TRT says needs to practice meditation to strengthen awareness. Indeed, indeed. And there's particular kinds of meditation that are more likely to do that for you. Let's see. Rich Grisham is in the house from Jefferson City, MO, Missouri, in the USA. Thanks for being with us, Rich. Great to meet you here today. If you're joining us, hit the thumbs up and let me know where you are in the world. All right, so vision statement, very, very important. Have a long-term project. So just for example, my current project is to understand Hermeticism and the memory tradition. So I've now been reading many, many books, currently reading the Francis Yates book on Giordano Bruno and the Hermetic tradition. This is just one of many books. 10 to 15 is a minimum for a vision statement on a particular subject. And you just got to keep going and going and going and understand as much as you can. And this actually falls inside of a larger project, which was to study and learn Advaita Vedanta, which I think I've done quite well with, but I haven't said that I've stopped. It's a large project, and I'm going to go back and reread a lot of that stuff after I finish this so that I have the biggest possible field of vision, right? So that I see how they sit together. And that's going to be more than 10 to 15 books. I've already read more than 15 books on Advaita Vedanta. But anyway, it's a long-term project, right? And it helps with thinking faster because the bigger your field is, the more room the seeds have to grow. And we're going to talk about seeds and growth in a minute. But that's a very, very important thing to do. So if you haven't created a vision statement yet for your learning, for your memory, please follow the link in the description to make sure that you watch this video and you take action on that. It is a great gift that will help you vivify your whole learning project. And then we've already talked about it today. Get some mind mapping going so you have radiant thinking. Radiant thinking is very, very, very important. And, just as Tony Buzan gave me the Warrior of the Mind emblem for outstanding contributions to global mental literacy, I want to give this to you. This was a tremendous thing that he did, and I want to give it forward as soon as possible, So get a vision statement together. And speaking of radiant thinking, the whole things that I do with the Magnetic Memory Method, I mind mapped with him what I do. And whoops, I didn't mind map how to not drop my journal, but there you go. Mistakes do happen. It's a little bit out of place because I also have my Think Buzan juggling balls here today for teaching purposes. But at the end of the day, we want to actually do these things. Don't think about them. Don't hum and ha one day about them. We know one day never comes. Someday never comes. Now is the time. Speed of implementation. All right. Other tips on how to think faster. Be in discussion groups. Yeah, online discussion groups are okay, but go and meet other people in the world and think out loud together. Experience thought in action together. You will see thinking out loud demonstrated for you, and you will perceive and observe yourself thinking out loud in the context of people whose ears actually are hearing you. It's a chemical situation. The airwaves are being manipulated. It's hitting cochlea, right? Or is it cochleae? The stirrups and all that stuff and the hammers. Ding, 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 ding. You can't underestimate how important that is to learning how to think faster because of it being a more organic, in your presence chemical situation, physical situation. When you are watching 6-minute videos, yeah, you're getting some sort of organic action, but it's clipped. It's not the same as being with people. And then you just skipping on, turning on the engine for the next 6-minute video instead of doing what extended thinking that is rapid and can connect the dots and can deal with interruptions like dropping your journal on the floor and then figuring out where you were and getting back onto it. You got to practice that both in a digital environment but also in the real world environment. Huge. So to be honest, I don't get out to discussion groups enough, but I try to do it once a week as much as humanly possible. And I always notice that my thinking is sharper and I'm more vivified, if that's a word, vivified. I feel more vivid when I am with other people. And it has a lot to do with the chemicals that are created when our brains are with other brains. And it really does have to do with things that are very close to your brain. Those fluids that are inside your ears, they get manipulated, the waves. You'd better believe that's different than all of this mass consumption of audiobooks and podcasts and so forth. Not that there's anything wrong with those things, but just imagine how you double down, triple down on the effect by going out into the world and then talking about those things that you've learned with others that literally inside your head shakes the waves, right? In a deeper, more prevalent way. And you see the demonstration of it, the aha moments, right? That are there right in front of you. Where else are they in your chemicals? In your eyes, right? Which is going straight back to the back of your head, vibrating all this stuff. Wow. All the positive and negative ions flowing through the synapses, right? It's just, if you're not doing it, you're missing out big time. Now, let's check in with our chat. Hit the thumbs up if you're just joining us. Let me know where you are in the world, what you're doing, what you're thinking, how you're feeling. And let's see what Kyle has to say here. Says, really wish I could make memory paralysis faster. By the time I make every station and associative imagery for each information, I probably could have done rote memorization in the same amount of time. Thank you for saying that, Kyle. Test it. Test if that's true. Don't probably it. Go out and test it. I predict that that won't be the case, but here's another thing. You're feeling like your brain's not as sharp as it used to be. You're feeling like you're in a slump. Going out and doing that experiment is exactly what could trigger your way out of it, right? Because you would think, I heard from somebody recently. It was a private email, but he's a multi-time memory champion. He was asking me about something. He said, I memorized a bunch of names and I didn't use any memory techniques. And it worked really well for me. What do you think's going on there? And I said, well, okay, that's great. It was in a test setting, a practice setting. How will that work? I didn't ask him this, but I was just thinking, how would that be different? I asked him, tell me more about the context. How were you testing it, etc. So I don't know all the full details. So hopefully hear back from him today or whatever. Anyway, he's 4 times champion. He asked me about this, and I just told him a number of things that it could be. We don't have to get sidetracked with what all those things could be. And I'm not a neuroscientist, but having studied a fair amount in those realms, I think I gave him some pretty decent stuff. But it's kind of like, I'm so glad he went and tested. And I sometimes test it too. Like, how many cards would I memorize if I didn't use memory techniques? Or how would it work if I was going to do stuff? I haven't shared with anybody yet the whole year-long experiment that I did with rote learning. But what I can tell you, Kyle, is that it did revivify my interest in mnemonics, because that rote learning stuff does work, but it's boring and it's painful. And it's just, even if it did work better, it's still boring and painful. But it was worth doing. It's really worth doing. And every once in a while, if you listen to the episode with Tansel Ali, he talks about, how every once in a while he does an experiment not using the memory techniques. So give it a try. You might learn something very, very powerful. All right. How else to think faster? Well, meditation. Meditation is a great way to think faster, right? And especially if you memorize a text and make it part of your meditation. So I do meditate in silence, but my preference is to meditate by reciting texts. And it's very, very simple, right? So, Karturagniya prapyutephalam karma kimparam karma tajidam kritimahoraro patana karanam phalamashashvatam geti nirodhakam. I can go on and on for about 6 and a half minutes, I'm sure, and I will do that if you want. But it's a very long song, and it's very, very powerful because you concentrate for a long period of time in your meditation in a way that is producing semantic and echoic material, which is how you think faster, right? Your muscle memory of your mouth is now linked together with the production of thought. And, if you're on these live streams, you've seen me when I'm in pain. You've seen me when I'm not as sharp as I like to normally be. And you've seen, the best and the worst of these productions. But nonetheless, it's still great to be able to show up and do a better job than, unpracticed, because that you are able to recite from the top of your head and explain what it is that you recited. So memorize a text for your meditation and practice. There's some simple ways to get started, and we'll talk about them under separate cover. But and we have talked about them before under separate cover. But it's very, very important to not only just meditate, but meditate for memory. So do that. What text you pick is up to you. I've had many suggestions for you. But here's another thing about meditation. Allow ideas instead of fighting ideas. So there's all this kind of stuff, and believe me, I spent a decade fighting ideas, and then I learned how to sit just to sit, and it's so much better to just allow the ideas when you're meditating instead of fighting them. And I like to meditate with a journal, some paper or whatever, or I just allow myself to get up and go and write the ideas so that I instantly dispel them. Don't get FOMO, fear of missing out. Very, very important. So just pause to journal. You'll find that it's really, really, really helpful. Really, really helpful. So pause to journal. Well, is that really the discipline of meditation? Well, no, but if you memorize a text, then you can still stop your recitation because an idea came, journal, and because you're using a memory palace, you know exactly where you stopped. And then you just get right back into it. It's beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. All right. So that's important. Now, I said we were going to talk more about dreams for thinking fast and thinking faster. So let's get into that. But let's check in with our chat first. Hit the thumbs up if you're just joining us. Let me know in the chat where you are in the world, if you have any comments, questions, etc. Now is the time. And we got a couple more tips for you that are very powerful for thinking faster. Rich, thank you for your thoughts to Kyle about it paying off in the long run and developing rules to stick to the discipline. Absolutely. Although I would say that it is good to try alternatives, try different things. I mean, our techniques wear out. Same thing with my memorization project with Sanskrit. So I find that you get much, much more focus in the beginning on a particular thing. Memorized nearing 100 lines of Sanskrit now. And as I continue to practice and I recite all of these every day, and it gets longer and longer and longer, the ones that I've had the longest, their focus power tends to quote unquote wear out a little bit. Whereas the things that are new that I'm memorizing, they're much more requiring of attention to get the mnemonics back, right? So now I'm nearly done the Nirvana Shatakam, which is sometimes called the Atma Shatakam, in case you see it out there differently. And so this is much more demanding on my attention because it's the newest. Whereas the older ones, I can actually think many, many thoughts while I'm reciting it, and I have to actually pay more attention to focusing with those texts. So one of the ways that I combat this is that I don't recite the texts in the same order every time. I sometimes start with the Upadesa Sharam. I sometimes start with the extracts from the Ribhu Gita. I sometimes start with the pieces from the Bhagavad Gita, or Bhagavad Gita, if you pronounce it properly, in Sanskrit, insofar as I can pronounce Sanskrit properly, but it's supposed to be something more like Bhagavad Gita, not Bhagavad. I sometimes start with that. Sometimes now I start with what I know from the Nirvana Shatakam, and I rotate them so that everything gets primacy, everything gets recency, right, in the serial positioning, and they don't wear out as fast. So there's a strategy for you in your meditations to consider. The other thing, too, is you do station skipping. So you don't necessarily recite everything in order all the time. That can keep it very, very fresh. All right, we're checking in with the chat. If you are joining us, hit the thumbs up. Let me know where you are in the world, what you're doing, what you're thinking, and if you have any questions, let's dive into them. TRT44 asks, do you think the law of attraction exists? You talked about radiation in the mind map. Start from the principal idea in the center and spread the branches around and linking them. All right, so radiant thinking, we must trill our R's out of respect for our British friends. Radiant thinking is not law of attraction. Law of attraction, I don't think exists in the way that people say that it exists. So why do you need a law of attraction? Like, what is the point of this fantastic idea? The law of attraction of what? Why not focus instead on just doing good things in the world, being good at the good things that you do, and let go of the need to attract anything? If you're doing it well and you're genuinely helping people without an expectation of an outcome, don't you think that you're already ahead of the game? What do you need this fantastic notion of... No. Law of attraction is nonsense. Except for when you're just doing the things that attract people based on the rules of the economy, the rules of an exchange culture, the rules of being a good citizen on planet Earth. You don't need the law of attraction. People are attracted to good stuff. Humans have survived because they are genetically predisposed to share things that are helpful and warn against things that are not. Now, are we always 100% good at it? No, we do sometimes share things that are poisonous. But overall, we've got here at the end of 2019, as we speak right now, because we're much better at sharing the good things that help us survive and better at avoiding sharing the things that are crap on the main, right? And we seem to be getting better and better and better at it if you take Steven Pinker at his word and so forth. Now, these guys in the Hermetic tradition, they were less good at it. But we got to be as good as we are, right? And I think we're very good indeed because of them trailblazing for us. And one of the main points that you'll get out of this, and generally looking at the Hermetic tradition, and especially in the context of Advaita Vedanta, is that they were true scientists a lot of the time, right? And so a lot of people think science starts with Francis Bacon. No. There is some credence to that is useful to consider. But at the end of the day, science is how we got here, right? We are scientists, whether we like it or not. We're always testing and validating. Life is science, right? Life is the great test of if this happens, will it work, right? It's just the way it is. It's the most beautiful thing you'll ever realize. Nietzsche, I think, said it best when he said, everything interprets, right? Everything interprets. That tree, right? That is, through photosynthesis, is getting the sun's light. And it says, well, there's this fence in the way. I'll just go under it, right? Well, did it find in its scientific experiment that it's actually getting light better that way? No, not necessarily. So then it wraps back around the other way to get more sun, the advantage of it. But it made a test. It had a hypothesis that maybe if it goes through the fence in this particular way, it'll eventually reach this. And that's why you see sometimes these trees that have gone through all these elaborate gyrations that, you just see the scientific nature of life itself playing out before your very eyes. Go to parks, look at trees. You'll learn a lot. It's very, very important. So, the law of attraction doesn't need to. It's just, it's nonsense writ large. But there's always a grain of, well, not always, but there are often a grain of truth to this, that, and the other thing. So I'd rather think of the law of action. You want something to happen? Figure out how others have made that thing happen. Try to get as much reverse engineering on your own as you can out of it, probably by using the Fineman technique. Get a mentor who can help you skip a lot of the problems, or just open yourself to accepting the problems that will come and dive in, make it happen. Do it scientifically. This is what will set you free. Frequent practice with the relevant thing that you actually want to do in a spirit of experimentation and in a way that's entertaining. Free. Simple. Simple. All right. TRT44 says, haha, I thank God I found someone sharing the same idea about the law of attraction, fantasy, and illusion, sharing knowledge and do the good things. Well, don't have to thank God. just thank yourself for sticking around and, join us more often. Hit the thumbs up, share this around with people so that we are able to continue helping more people like yourself. And that's the true attraction, isn't it? All right. So Kyle says, thanks for the great answers as always, Anthony. My last question, who was your medical students who found success with your practices again? I think hearing their methods could recharge me too. Well, it's not about their methods, but if you want, just go to magneticmarymethod.com/testimonials, and there's a couple of medical stories there. And really what they're saying is that they use the magnetic memory method. And if you understand deeply what the magnetic memory method is, then you should have no problems whatsoever. And I believe that you do understand it deeply, but we got to figure out what's going on there so that you can revivify what you're doing. But Stephen Blatt, if memory serves, was one of the most recent ones. Let me look myself, refresh my memory. Hope that was his name. That wouldn't look good if I, not that I worry about the Dapper Dan world, but he had a great testimonial to help inspire you. And let's see here. Stephen Blatt. Wow, it works. He says, I worked with Anthony Metavier's magnetic memory method when I was studying for my ophthalmology board exam, a huge career mile marker and one that was making me fearful and anxious. I needed to have instant recall over a high volume of complex information, and I wanted to optimize my memory in order to have the best chance of performing at my best come exam day. The magnetic memory method was a great fit for me. The exercises were easy and fast to go through and actually quite enjoyable. While I didn't apply the methods to every topic I needed to learn, I would use them to get myself unstuck when a particular topic or piece of information was especially difficult for me. Much to my delight, the magnetic memory method approach created a glide path for absorbing and recalling the most difficult information. When exam day arrived, I went in with confidence and was able to easily retrieve the information that I had encoded into my long-term memory thanks to the magnetic memory method. I'm very happy to report that I passed the exam, and I'm grateful to Anthony and magnetic memory method for the role they played in my success. That's from Stephen Blatt, MD, board-certified ophthalmologist, clinical assistant, professor of ophthalmology. Also, over on the page, there's a video there with Joe Riff, and you can watch him talk about his medical mnemonics at med school. And what else in medicine? Hugh Jones passed the Royal College Physicians exam. I am writing to say thank you. Your memory techniques helped me pass the membership of the Royal College of Physicians exams and so get the job I dreamed of. I always enjoy the inspiring podcast and am enjoying having a mastermind course to work through. So Hugh is in the masterclass and the mastermind, which might be something that you would consider, Kyle, if you're not also in the mastermind. So I also enjoyed the inspiring podcast and I'm enjoying having a mastermind course to work through to really step up my memory, which is much more fulfilling than the TV I was watching before. I've been very busy with work, starting my new job as a neurology teaching registrar, but do use the techniques regularly still. I always tell every student I meet about memorization methods, and today I'm reading your Spanish learning book. That's from Hugh Jones, which is great. So Hugh has a great point there, is you don't stop with the Magnetic Memory Method Masterclass. You don't stop with the mastermind. You carry on and you continue to refresh. All right. Now, this is not a testimonial for the masterclass itself, but Alex Mullen, who I believe has now finished medical school and is a doctor, he has nice words there to say. So that's, something nice about my work, but not a medical success story totally to be attributed to here, but I think that's worth noting nonetheless. And another one that I want to share with you amongst our medical stories or medical related is from Yuko, who says, I'm studying to become a body worker in Japan and had an exam on origins and the insertions of 140 muscles. Even though I speak Japanese, I never went to school in Japan and my kanji skills are that of a fourth grader, and these medical terms are a challenge even to read. Naturally, I failed the first time around trying to learn the traditional way of repetition. With your advice, I made a few memory palaces and numbered them up to 140. I assigned a famous person to each bone. I chose objects for each direction, like superior, inferior, posterior, inferior, front to back, etc. And I was able to memorize them all, something that felt almost impossible when I first started studying. Thank you so much. I owe my success to your method. So, she's obviously not teaching everything there, but you got some tips already. And Yeah, there's all kinds of stuff all over there. And, the number one trick to understand, Kyle, is that it's not about medicine. It's not about the information. A lot of people get hung up on thinking that memory techniques are about the information. Please try to avoid this. It's about how you approach the information. And if you start to think that there's some difference between medical terminology in French or Spanish or something like that, then you set yourself back. Whereas if you would just focus on being able to memorize within goals and milestones and so forth, and just forget about the nature of the information, you'll be much further ahead, because your brain doesn't really care what the information is. The techniques don't really care. What matters is you using the techniques, and also you letting go of that need for it to be a particular kind of information. And so this is really, really important. It's discernment, and it's something like karma yoga. Karma yoga means taking an action with no concern for the outcome, letting go of the need to control the outcome. So I hope that helps you out a little bit there, and I think that will recharge you. And I hope those medical stories do help you. I'm not saying that medical success stories shouldn't help you, but you should see that one of the things that makes them successful is letting go of the outcome and treating the magnetic memory method for what it is, right? Which I'm sure that you do, but you can also refine that. And by revisiting what the magnetic memory method truly is, you'll be able to revivify naturally. I have to do it all the time too, because I'm not always using the magnetic memory method, and I think, oh, that's right, I didn't use the A mode, or I didn't use the C mode enough, etc. And so I'm constantly reteaching myself the actual material of my own teaching. It's very, very important. You got to revivify. That's why when Hugh there says, now I'm reading your book on Spanish, that's the whole point, right? Is you've got to constantly make sure that you continue to train. That's why I say, take it one sip at a time. Study these techniques consistently. Implement what you learn from your consistent study of the memory techniques, and then practice with information that legitimately improves your life. That's the only way. SIP, one sip at a time. All right, I hope that helps. Rich says, time has been an issue for me, but once you develop it and shape your memory systems, you'll have a powerful memory tool. Indeed, time is an interesting topic. I'm not sure why people are convinced that there is time. We don't see any evidence that time exists, but we certainly create ideas about time, and then the ideas about time are what get us in the end. So when you have better ideas about time, then I think you get a lot further, a lot faster. And then the thing is that the idea of time that we formulate is a great lever. It creates great leverage. And how that it creates leverage is we allow time to do a lot of the heavy lifting for us. But we have to think about time so that we can create actions in that illusion of time so that those outcomes come in the future. The future? No, in the now, right? Because the future doesn't exist. The future can't exist. Only the now exists. Now, we can get into Gödel's incompleteness theorem if we want and talk about how that maybe it can, but at the end of the day, you know where I'm getting, right? So many people are hung up on a future that hasn't happened yet, and when they get there, it won't be the future, will it? It'll be now. So the power of now is literally that. Just be now. Let go of the outcome so you can focus on the now. You'll go a lot further, a lot faster. Okay, let's see here. Rich got to go. And so thank you for having been here, Rich, and enjoy. The next time, I hope you can indeed stay longer, as you say. All right. TRT says it's 2:11 a.m. Sleep, my friend. It'll help you. I'm sorry you miss our live streaming because of that, but maybe in the future that will be something that we can fix for you. Gaurav is in the house. Well, namaste. It's been a long time since we saw you, Gaurav. Thank you for being here. I'm doing wonderful. How are you? Let me know in the chat how you're doing. And all of you, let me know what you're doing, what you're thinking, how things are going. Let's talk about dreaming because it's really, really important. If you start to track your dreams and associate with your dreams scientifically, not woo-woo-ifically, not this bizarre idea that, a dream about swimming means this from somebody who wrote a book. Like, how do they know what your dream of swimming means? What you want to do instead is learn proper associative thinking with dreaming, right? So how do I know anything about this, and why should I care to divide these kinds of dream analysis? Well, I knew Robert Langs. I spent a lot of time with that guy as his patient, and I read a substantial percentage. He wrote a lot. He wrote a ton, but I read as much as I could. So I didn't read all of his books. He had more than 40 of them, but I read probably about half of them. And there were so many articles he wrote, and I read as many as I could. And I also read a lot about him and the response to him. So I'm quite a student, so to speak, of Robert Langs. All of which is to say, don't take my word for it. Go out and also be a student of his take on dreams. There are other scholars that confirm what he's doing. A lot of people don't get it. One of the reasons I think they don't get it is because they're caught up in the death anxiety that he tried to free you from. And I would say he was successful, but it took time. And a lot of the value out of his sessions came later. But I also felt them during the sessions. In any case, we can only go over this a little bit today. But decoding your dreams, he's not talking about dream interpretation as it's normally talked about. So there isn't some giant index in here where, oh, I dreamed about falling off a cliff. Oh, on page 246, it says that dreaming about falling off cliffs tends to be... No. That's garbage. What we need to do is we need to have a means of testing why we respond to the dream the way that we do, why we create the interpretation that we do. And we need to test it against 3 different kinds of anxieties. Now, you want to learn how to think faster? Learn how to think in terms of these anxieties. So we talked about the who, what, where, when, why, and all that stuff earlier today. Well, the other level here is to understand how the unconscious mind operates scientifically. So one of the things that we're saying, this isn't about right or wrong. I'm not going to get in arguments about whether this is right or wrong, although we can argue all day. I'm happy to do this chin-scratching philosophication. We can shoegaze at our shoes all day long about right or wrong. Freud this and Jung that and blah, blah, blah. No. Just go out and do this. See how it works for you. And be a student of it, because it can really, really help you free your mind, right? It certainly helped me. So anyway, the 3 anxieties, the core anxiety, predatory anxiety, prey anxiety, and existential anxiety. And so a lot of the problem with humans is that the unconscious mind, and this is not really a problem at the end of the day, but the unconscious mind, according to Langs, is like a antiviral mechanism. It's catching incoming viruses that would cause you suffering of different kinds, right? So imagine that the ideas that people say, the things that they say, are like flu viruses, and your body has antibodies that prevent you from catching the flu of the ideas that people say. So what is the sickness of other people's ideas? Well, predatory anxiety and prey anxiety are the huge ones that we deal with all the time. So, for example, we will feel that people are symbolically trying to harm us, or we will feel that they are literally trying to harm us, right? So, a sort of case point in example, I remember a teaching in, and this happens a lot, like people who know NLP use this a lot, where, they said, if you don't want to criticize someone directly, tell them a story. So someone's annoying you or whatever. And instead of saying, you really should just stop talking in a class, for example, stop talking and stop interrupting, etc. They will instead, in order to not, trigger their anxiety or call them out, but still get the message across, they will tell a story about how, one time I worked at this company and the boss, he really needed to focus or concentrate or whatever. And he would get really angry if his interruption and focus was interrupted. And one day, I have to tell you, honestly, it was my fault because I wasn't paying attention. I was nattering and chittering and chattering with the person behind me. And the boss came up to me and he said, "I'm going to strangle you if you don't shut up. And I'm going to fire you and throw you off the boat," and whatever, right? And you're telling this story to the person. Not because it ever really happened or anything. Maybe it did. Maybe the person had the boss who actually threatened to throw them off a boat if they didn't shut up. But you're telling this story now to communicate about how the chattering and so forth is unacceptable. Now, I'm not saying you should do this. I'm only saying that the unconscious mind responds to stories and so forth and can get the point through stories, and it can be in a way that doesn't cause the anxiety to be triggered directly. And we do this all the time. We sometimes think that someone's telling a story and, oh, what are they trying to say behind the lines? And it can create an anxiety. And that anxiety, our minds are filtering for, and sometimes we completely filter out what has being said because it's so threatening to us. And why is that important? Well, because the brain is constantly spending energy, tracking how we're spending energy, and is trying to preserve energy. So as we're listening for threats in the environment, according to Links, our brains will be filtering this out. Now, what he's not saying is that your dreams are now somehow trying to, create some kind of lesson or anything like that. No, he's not saying this, although some people think that that's what he's saying. He's not saying this. What he's saying is that when you then interpret your dreams, what you're trying to do is use your dreams to help you remember situations in your everyday life where you may have had some of those anxieties, and those anxieties are holding you back, causing you suffering because your brain has tried to filter them out. So, in other words, there's not a one-to-one correspondence between what your brain is doing in your dreams and what's happening in your everyday life. And so one of the things that you will do is you will repress what's going on and you won't be able to see it. So you use dreams to try and get at it. Now, it's all very complex and mushy, and I don't think I described it very well. But that's why you want to read his book, because he's the expert in it. I've only just sort of lived it in a very, very important way that helped me a lot. And it's important because it helped me. And I think it'll help you too. But I had the advantage of actually being able to go through this with him again and again and again. And there's some really, really interesting examples that we can talk about some other time. Anyway, existential anxiety is the other one, which is worrying about, plane crashes affecting us, etc. If you can just start to practice seeing these anxieties in your everyday life, and whether you use your dreams or not, doesn't really matter, but it helps. I used to use his stuff in my film scholar technique in my film studies analysis, and my film course, one of my film courses, is now available as a video course. So if you're interested, let me know, and I'll let you know how to get it. But it's something that was really helpful to me, just to see the anxieties and better psychoanalyze, so to speak, the world as it responds to movies. So that was cool too, because our movies really are dreams, shared dreams. And you can see the anxieties that a culture is going through by the kinds of movies that they're creating. It's really interesting. There are comments on what's going on, not in your childhood, but right now, the anxieties you're having right now. Anyway, again, didn't explain it all that well, but it's very complicated, and you want to spend some time with it for sure, reading his stuff. And most importantly, just practice it, and you'll start to see the way that these anxieties show up in life. And in terms of thinking faster, the way you think faster is you're able to stress test what's being said to you because you run them through the anxieties. So you've got the different things that we've already talked about today, and then you've got the tool of running it through the anxieties. Is there predatory anxiety here? Is there prey anxiety here? Is there existential anxiety here? And as you think through those things, lots of thoughts will come. What's the best way to get good at thinking of them in real time? Practice. What's a great way to do it? Write down your dreams and analyze your dreams for the anxieties. But not in a woo-woo way, not, page 345 says that if I dreamt about water in my backyard. Just do this in the scientific manner that he's talking about. He's a controversial guy. It will stretch your mind, but I think you'll find that it's well worth it. All right, let's check in with our chat before we carry on. And Maricela says, think fast, think right. I'm not sure that's what we're talking about today, but we're talking more about the RAP technique, which helps us slow our thinking so it's more accurate, but still winds up being as expedient as possible, which means fast, right? So RAP, again, if you missed the beginning, is talked about near the beginning of this session. You'll watch the replay. Chrome One Walking says, I can't wait to listen to the replay. Question, when are you doing your masterclass on the Emerald tablet? That's a good question. When will definitely probably be August 2020, but it's not going to be on the Emerald tablet. It's going to be referring to the knowledge in the Emerald tablet in context. So set your calendar for August 2020 to be as free as possible. I can't say more right now, but probably in January, February, there'll be an announcement. Gaurav says, whenever I watch your videos, it inspires me to use these beautiful methods. So I watch your videos. Thank you for your videos. Well, thank you, Gaurav. I really appreciate you being here. It's been a long time since we saw you, and I hope to see you more often in the discussions, the chats, and on these live streams. All right, if you're joining us, hit the thumbs up. Let me know where you are in the world, what you're doing, what you're thinking. And now, diffusion, another way to help you think faster. So we want to just let things go. We want to let them percolate. How do we do it? Great way to do it is just go for a walk. Digital fasting walk is recommended, but any kind of walking, very, very good. We also want to harness the power of cold and hot showers. These tend to stimulate the vagus nerve. Now, a lot of people say that cold and hot showers stimulate the vagus nerve equally. I don't want to get into this, but at the end of the day, I think cold is going to be better because of its disciplinary things and what it teaches you about your mind being pretty neurotic. I mean, it's not that cold, right? And yet people struggle to get in front of the cold. Shower. Now, some of these ideas are coming from a great book that I highly recommend that you read called Rest. And Alex Pang, this is an amazing book. And one of the most amazing things that helped me a lot in terms of getting more rest and thinking better is that you don't necessarily stop doing activity to rest, but you can apply your skills in other areas. So for example, I write a lot about memory, but I can get rest from just writing some fiction, for example. And so I find that if I allow myself to just write without worrying about whether anybody's going to read it, whether they're going to like it, whether they're going to share it, whether they're going to do this, which I practice not worrying about anyway, but you have to take those things into consideration if you're going to publish things on the internet. If I just take a pause from that whole world, even though I'm still writing, I'm now also writing just to apply my skill to another area where there is no benefit to anybody except for me just resting. And I write short story, work on a novel, whatever, don't care. Thinking speeds up because you're practicing thinking and writing in a different area, practicing different kinds of thinking, etc. So you have analytical thinking now applied to narratological thinking. And you can be analytical about narratology, which is great, which makes you think even better. So thinking upon thinking upon thinking in a diffuse manner, right? So you'll be amazed if you just spend some time writing fiction, how many problems you'll solve, how many ideas you'll have just because you go into diffuse thinking. Very, very important. And then, take a challenging course on philosophy or some heavy thinking topic. Heavy thinking can be very, very powerful. All right, so diffusion is good. Get into some of that. Now, also another tip for thinking faster is be aware of your body. So Charisma on Command, please check it out. The link is for you in the description. They have a video called How to Think 10 Times Faster Under Pressure. And this has got one really good tip that I recommend to you about how to send a signal to your body so things slow down and calm down so that you can think. But generally, just be aware of your body. So a lot of people that get stressed and, they start to clamp up, this causes your brain to clamp up. But if you can just relax, you'll think better. You'll think faster. Now, we've had a lot of fun about how to think better. Think. But there's a trap, and we need to know how to avoid it. And the trap is analysis paralysis. So you don't want to get into analysis paralysis, right? You know what analysis paralysis is, right? You're thinking, and then what about this, and what about that, and what about this, and what about that, and what? You're mentally rotating it 1,000 ways till Sunday, and you're not actually taking action. So how do you get out of analysis paralysis? Well, I'm in it right now to a certain extent with my new book because I've got a mind-melting amount of stuff to make decisions on. And there's so much good in the wrap technique that we talked about earlier from Decisive, but it does have a slight trap to it, which is that you can get caught in analysis paralysis when you're using the wrap technique. But it's still worth it at the end of the day. But now I got to get out of analysis paralysis. So how do we get out of this? Because, everything's in the great pharmacy of the world is this sort of the cure is the poison and the poison is the cure. So there's always a little poison in the cure, right? And so we got to know how to deal with that so we can get out of the pharmacon problem or the pharmacy problem, right? So we got to, one, acknowledge it. And then we got to revisit RAP, right? So have we widened our options too much for too long? Have we reality tested for too much for too long? Have we attained too much distance, right? Do we need now to get closer? Do we need to go and ask some people some stuff? Not be distant, but be closer. And then, we got to prepare to fail. But are we maybe preparing to the point of inviting failure because we're so over-prepared for failure? So that's a problem. We got to avoid it, right? So the pharmacy or the pharmacon problem is good to have in your mind, and it'll help you stop analysis paralysis. And then just segment your decisions. Segment it. And to help you segment your decisions when it comes to memory, we missed a slide here. Make sure you watch the material on how to stop overthinking memory paralysis. I think you'll find that very, very useful for your progress. And then, of course, just get started, right? You have more time than you think, because a lot of people treat time incorrectly. They make it a problem when it's actually the solution if you think about it differently. And then accrete value over time. You'll accrete value over time when you practice thinking, as we've talked about today, which is to essentially create time to practice thinking. And then the value will come when you're consistent. So if you want to set yourself free to think properly and faster, frequent practice with relevant thoughts in a spirit of experimentation that entertains you. That's easy, simple, easy peasy lemon squeezy. And then, use memory techniques to create the rhizomatic effect. So if you're not using memory techniques yet and you don't have the free memory improvement kit, go and get it at magneticmerrymethod.com. And you will have the rhizomatic effect, which is essentially aha moments that just happen, right? You will want diffusion. You will want to walk, take showers, etc., meditate to have these aha moments. But when you're doing it from within memory, like when you've memorized the RAP technique, instead of just, oh, that's nice, but you actually memorize it, commit it to memory so you can say it backwards and forwards and then actually use it and remind yourself to use it, well, then you're going to actually now have more insights. Aha, that connects with this. That connects with that. That's why I memorize so much Sanskrit, because it makes it much more evident and prevalent to my mind when I see something from the Advaita Vedanta tradition to the Hermetic tradition, because I'm doing it from within memory. That's the rhizomatic effect. And so now there's also the memorization of the key ideas from this tradition, which then makes for even more rhizomatic effect as we go throughout life. Do you think you'd think a lot faster if you could connect things in your memory? You sure can. In case you don't know what a rhizome is, well, unlike a tree, which has roots that go down, all the branches catch the sun and then the roots pull up. The rhizome just is a alinear, decentralized network. Same plant, but they're not necessarily connected. And boom, boom, they just pop up. Boom, 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 boom. And some of them appear above the surface. Some become very deep, and they're just very, very powerful network. Kind of like the internet, right? Decentralized. You want your thinking to be decentralized also, so it can spontaneously just come up with great ideas all the time from all over the place. That's what a good, solid memory palace network can do for you if you use it, if you fill it with good stuff. Amazing. All right. So speaking of a good, solid memory palace network, if you haven't joined the street team yet, go to magneticmerrymethod.com/VM to be part of the early advance notices that you get by being part of it. And the new book will be coming as soon as I can get it out there, and I will enjoy having you be part of the street team if that is right for you, and I hope that it is. And if not, no problem. We'll just let you know about it later when it is ready and available. All right, everybody. I hope you enjoyed today's rather substantial, I hope, session on how to think faster. And I appreciate everybody who was active in the comments. Thank you for hitting that thumbs up. Thank you for making it a nice discussion. And I believe that before I go, if memory serves, I had one question that I didn't answer, and I'm just going to quickly scan for that and answer it because it was a little bit off topic, but I don't want to miss it, and because it will be something that may be useful. All right, radio silence. If you are still here with us and want to add anything while I'm looking for this question, then you are free to do that. But maybe I just dreamed that there was another question there. That's always possible. Always possible. But feel free to post anything whatsoever. And radio silence, radio silence, radio silence. Oh man, there's so many chats here I can't find it. I wonder why it's not showing up. Was it maybe a Facebook question? No, we didn't have any Facebook chats that I can see. I'm having this thing where I feel like I need to maybe go get some glasses. Things are not as sharp as they used to be. Huh, that's weird. Oh, maybe the person took it away. All right. Maybe I just having a memory blip. But I think we answered TRT44's question about thinking faster in great detail today. And Shay, I had talked about Greek origins, Norbert Wiener, and the Stafford. Radio silence. Radio silence. That's weird. I'm sure I saw a question that I said I was going to answer earlier, but I can't see it here. And I said I was going to... I'm not going to watch the replay myself, I don't think. But... oh, message retracted. Okay, I'm seeing some messages retracted, so that must be why that I can't find it. All right. Let's see here. Oh, it was the guy asking for to study for AP finals. That's right, Alexander. Thank you so much. I can't see it. So if it's there, I'd love to see the actual question, but it's like it's disappeared. Or I really do need to go get my eyes checked because the screen is so small. I don't see that AP question anywhere. I just see some messages retracted, so I don't know if I can do a search on this particular thing. But in any case, yeah, I wanted to answer it. And so thank you, Alexander. I feel exonerated that it's not an illusion of my memory, but I just can't find the exact question. It was near the beginning, but it just seems to have disappeared. All right. So how to study for AP finals. Assuming that that was advanced placement, really how to study starts before the school year begins or before the study session begins. So I would say go and get the syllabus for the course as soon as possible. Start reading as soon as possible. Make sure that you have example exams if you can get them. Go to the secretary of the department's office. Say, can I please have last year's exams? Get the last 5 years' exams. Talk to the professor, etc. And then make sure you have a Memory Palace network. Make sure that you're using these techniques thoroughly and make sure that you know what the magnetic memory method is and that you're using it completely, thoroughly, fully, completely, so that you get the most out of it. That's very, very important. So I hope that answers that question. There's no magic secret. There's no magic bullet. But thanks again to Alexander for reminding me what it was and that it did, in fact, exist. And I'm going to allow myself to stop searching for it because I just don't know where it is. And Shay has more comments here. Excellent. If you have anything more you want to address on today's live stream, please pop them in the chat. And Shay says, yes, again, magnetic memory method brought me to these points to be sure, and there is a high likelihood that there's going to be big topics, especially for their relations to thinking and computer science. Question, though. I've had issues with the sequential part of memorizing, i.e. linking, probably due to short-term memory. I have seen, based on pointers from your method and experimenting, that anchoring works. Semicolon. Ooh. Now you are in turn. You have the radio silence. However, parts linked tend to go missing or slightly scattered. Any helpful tips? All right, so I would love to know what exactly is the information that is missing or slightly scattered. I mean, what's the example here? What are we talking about? So, lag. Let me just read this again. I've had issues with the sequential part of memorizing, i.e. linking, probably due to short-term memory. I have seen, based on the pointers from your method in experimenting, that anchoring works. However, parts linked tend to go missing or slightly scattered. Any helpful tips? I don't know if I have any helpful tips because I don't know what you're memorizing or what you're doing to memorize. So a couple of options. Well, definitions of theorems, for example, mostly text to memorize. A definition to work with would be good. Because there's all kinds of theorems, right? So just generally, I mean, are you using all the magnetic modes every time? If not, why not? Are you using recall rehearsal every time? If not, why not? Are you using inner recall rehearsal inside of the definitions? If not, why not? That can really, really help your practice. So I'm guessing that there's probably some of the magnetic modes that are not in place. I'm guessing that probably recall rehearsal is not robust enough, at least in the short term, in order to get over this. And it may be that you're not doing the exercises enough and need to refresh that. So on the exercises page, there's visualization mastery. Yes, you may have already done those exercises, but do them again. I recommend at least once a year, if not quarterly. So, for example, I recently just redid some of the exercises, and there they are, right? So that's one of the exercises, and it takes just a few minutes, and I redo it frequently because it really helps avoid the technique breaking down. And so this was maybe 2 weeks ago, and I tend to do it about quarterly, but at least once a year. Let's go through that exercises page. You might also benefit from the FAQ page, which can help. The other thing too is you might want to, with your numbers, add another of the number techniques. So, for example, I'm going to add this to the number course soon, and it's an additional way of using the major method. And you might you might never use the major that way, but you might want to refresh it. So that can be another thing. And then you might also just want to try some oddball stuff, like getting yourself juggling. Ooh, that's a little hard seated. I think that's the first time I've ever tried to juggle seated. But if you do a little bit of juggling, you might get some brain exercise from a different angle that really helps trigger some certain things. I have no goal of becoming a juggler, but I do juggling, 4 to 5 times a week just to get the brain benefits out of it. And I'll juggle with playing cards as well. And so these are a lot of procedural memory kind of sharpenings of the mind. And it's just really fun to have things in your hand, because your hands have so many muscles, your arms have so many muscles, they connect to your brain. So obviously, the more that you use them in particular ways, the more brain benefits you're going to get out of it. So there's a little tip for you. And so one of the things that I do, I'm not going to try this seated, but I did it on my Instagram recently before I started this live stream, so you can go check that out, is just reciting from your memory while you're juggling. So whatever you've memorized most recently or something you memorized a long time ago, just recite it while juggling. It's tough, but you can see me doing it, and it can cause brain blips and so forth, but you'll really love it. It's a lot of fun. All right, so without a specific example from you to work with, I guess we'll leave it at that. But on the topic of, let's see here. Sinda Devi has a wonderful comment to add here. Let's catch that since we're here. We got about 10 minutes left, so if you got anything you want to say, add questions, etc., let me know in the chat. I'll be happy to address it. I hope that helped you, Shay, though. Let me know, and reach out by email if things continue to bother you. As a valued member of our Magnetic Memory Method Masterclass, I will do my best to get back to you ASAP. But specifics as much as you can, and just generally try the Fineman technique to save yourself time. If you start applying the Fineman technique to these issues, you'll find that you probably know the answer, and you'll get the practice of answering it for yourself with greater expedience from there on in. And just sort of, to get back to my lovely little Amor Fati coin here, you want to accept your fate that this comes up again and again in life, and love that fate, which, in case people don't know, that's what Amor Fati means, love of fate. All right, Cinda, I can't retain the particular perfect word from the Memory Palace, but I understand the concept and explain. But I am using different words at a different time, and I'm not getting the correct sequence of words. Okay, so how have you learned the Memory Palace? Do you know that your Memory Palaces are robust enough? Do you use the magnetic modes for the words that you're memorizing to get that correct sequence? Those are all things to look into. And if you're not part of our world, then, please join at magneticmemorymethod.com or go to magneticmemorymethod.com/YT to get started with the free course. Shay says, need to do more of the exercises. You're very correct. Current courses have to do with logic and higher level math, so mostly to do with mental computation and mental piecing of parts together. All right. Yeah, so I think I would suggest you refresh your knowledge. One simple, easy way to do that is just redo the exercises. Make sure that you're revisiting them. And in case it wasn't obvious in what I showed you there, pen, paper. Now, a little tip, since we're here, it's a very powerful one. In that demonstration that I showed you, maybe you make the observation already, but I used different colors. So try that as well. All right. So thank you again, everybody, for being here today. Great, stimulating discussion, conversation. If you haven't hit that thumbs up yet, do so now. If you're watching the replay, thumbs up. Get involved in the discussion below. And since that we were talking about juggling, let's talk about other brain games as we exit the Memory Palace. Thank you again for being here. Until we have a chance to speak again, keep yourself magnetic and play some brain games.
Let the games begin! I define, establish, exercise, and practice. Externalize spatial maps as I attack the path of mature learner. Bottle burner, max memory reserve, and earnest. I'm a furnace, an anomaly, sibling of Simonides known to reduce cognitive load. And oh, how I rotate, juggling space, making a case for brain games so digital amnesia leaves you. Digital dementia is censured. Did y'all tag Herenium on your mind wall? Review, recall, we will evolve. Brain games, synapses flashing, mind palace crashing with brain games. Info encoded, mental high roller. Brain games, synapses flashing, mind palace crashing with the brain games. Info encoded, mental high roller. This is not a game you can afford to lose. Why? Brain games, don't need an app for that. I just attack with the path of a lab rat. I mean scientist, I'm an annihilist, finalist, illuminist, numinous, doing this, proving this, who is this scholar? Dopamine fiend, clean sheen like the Pleiades, enemies, illities, killing with abilities, rolling with affinity, rolling with McKinney. Brain games, healthy snacks, build a palace, pick some facts, learn to balance while you rap, unleash talents, don't look back. Brain games, synapses flashing, mind palace crashing with the brain games. Info encoded, mental high roller. Brain games, synapses flashing, mind palace crashing with the brain game. Info encoded, mental high roller. Scholar. MagneticMemoryMethod.com